is a newer member of our faculty, which is why I'm here as course director of the Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science and a person who's been around the traps quite a number of years. I think you're all familiar with who I am, but you may not have been taught by Tony yet. So we thought it was a great opportunity to introduce Tony, one of our newer members of faculty. So Tony's provided a bit of a potted list here, but I've actually got a bit more detail in the background. So I'm going to pull it up and make sure I get the details right. But Tony started at the Faculty of Pharmacy a few decades ago as a pharmacy undergraduate student. And from there, he went on to do a master's in pharmacy. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about his projects because I think they're really relevant. So Tony looked at peptide molecular modelling during his master's, still here. Well, I'm not at Parkville at that point in time, before he went off to do a PhD at the School of Pharmacy at the University of London, where he was looking at the synthesis of lipid peptide drug conjugates as drug delivery systems. He then did a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute for Psychiatry, which is in Germany, and he was looking at cell and molecular biology of muscle-derived neurotrophic factors. And with all that research knowledge, he came back to Australia and worked at the University of Melbourne. And he was in the Department of Pharmacology at that point, looking at the development of low molecular weight mimetics of neurotrophic and other growth factors. But alongside that, he decided to become founder and CEO of a biotech company called Calibre Biotechnology, and then decided to come and rejoin Monash University at our Faculty of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Science. And the reason that I wanted to give you that potted history, and it's only hitting your work life there, Tony. There's more to you than that. But
there have been other things that have happened.
I just think there's a lot of projects that have, cut to the core of what it means to be a pharmaceutical scientist. So when you started your undergraduate training, there were no such things as pharmaceutical science degree programs, but you've managed to sort of wend your way through a variety of positions and research and academic roles and working in industry and having your own biotech company. And you've ticked off a lot of the key areas that our students are learning about and will continue to work in once they graduate. So from my perspective, I think Tony is the best fit to be the course director of the Master of Pharmaceutical Science. And we're really lucky to have him do that circle and rejoin us back at Monash University. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to his very capable hands to take you through our next new initiative, which is the Master of Pharmaceutical Science. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, look, thanks for that introduction, Jen. It's terrific. It is really good to be back, in a sense, where this all started. So looking at the dates there, they're a little bit scary. 1982, when I started my Bachelor of Pharmacy degree at what was then called the Victorian College of Pharmacy, and now, of course, it's the Faculty of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences at Monash Uni, where you all are. But yeah, to come in some ways in a kind of circle and to you go on a career path, and some of it you plan and some of it happens, and I guess it's a matter of being in the spot to allow those things to happen. But yeah, it has been a career in pharmaceutical science, I guess, and it continues obviously at Monash and with this master's program. Now, Zoom, please let me advance the slides. So I thought a really good place to start with this was with the words that you almost can't utter anymore, 2020. 2020 was obviously a kind of really outrageous time for everybody. And, if you go back and you do take the time to think back of what was happening in last year and what's continuing with us today, here we are back in lockdown again. All these things that weren't things at all suddenly became the dictators of our lives. Isolation, lockdown, social distancing, all these things. We hadn't heard of any of those things, most of these things 1 year ago. And they became the kind of drivers of everything that we do. And, it's, when I was putting this slide together, I just thought, look at the different space that we're in 18 months ago when all this first began to conspire. And I guess, again, reflecting back on that, it made me think that really the problems that we face as a society with COVID-19 is really just the beginning. We're likely to have significant health and greater challenges facing us globally over the next decades. There's likely to be more pandemics. There's going to be health issues related to climate change and so on. And perhaps one of the kind of really bright things to come from this is this recognition that science, I think, and particularly pharmaceutical science in the case of COVID-19, is a really important part of our strategy towards what our new future is going to be. If we ignore science, it's really, really at our own peril. And we've seen what has happened over the last 18 months with leaders who've ignored science, who've ignored information, who've ignored evidence, and where that's left their countries compared to countries that have taken science and taken evidence on board. And we've been really fortunate, if you're living in Australia, to have had a government and a society that's largely lived by the knowledge that we can get from science. And here we are, just in a lockdown, but in a much better space than many other places are. But I guess the other thing to come from that is if these things continue to happen, which they will, Australia needs to be able to not only be a beneficiary of pharmaceutical science advances and global pharmaceutical discovery and supply chains, really have to be a participant in that. We can't just say, give me. We've got to be involved in that process and maybe develop a greater degree of autonomy even. And to do that, we need to develop and grow our pharmaceutical industry. And part of the component, I guess, that we need that is skilled individuals. We need other things. We need government investment. There's infrastructure and so on. We need global alliances and so on to continue. But we need the skilled individuals to do that. And this is really our segue into why it is we've established the new Masters of Pharmaceutical Science to help build that, fill that skills gap. So what we're going to do today in the presentation, we'll look at a few aspects of the degree. We'll look basically what it is. We'll spend a few slides dealing with what it is and what it isn't as well too. We'll spend a bit of detail looking at what it is that you'll study. We'll give you some idea of how it is you're going to be assessed. We'll look at the entry requirements. We'll look at how and when you might apply for the degree, and we'll have time at the end for questions. I should say, if you've got questions that come up as you think of them, type them into the Q&A section here. Don't use the chat at this stage. It works better if you go through the Q&A section, and Rachel, I think, will be monitoring the Q&A as we go, and then we'll come back to that at the end and use that to help us guide the discussion at the end of the session. So questions into the Q&A as they come up. So what is the MPharmSci? So the MPharmSci is a coursework master's degree, and it's a significant step for the faculty. It's its first coursework graduate program in the pharmaceutical science space. And the aim of it here really is to create graduates that have got a sophisticated knowledge of pharmaceutical science and a skill set that is commensurate with that, an advanced skill set. So it's a graduate of this will be significantly more developed than one would be from, for example, from the Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science degree. And the aim of this is for those graduates to meet the needs, as we said, of the growing pharmaceutical industry in Australia and related industries as well too. We know, you will know from your Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science studies that our graduates do also end up in allied industries, the pharmaceutical industry, in cosmetics, food science, and so on. But building this skilled set of graduates to meet the growing needs of pharmaceutical and allied industries. So it's important to note, I guess, that it's different to a PhD. It's got greater breadth. So if those of you know PhD studies, a student will tend to focus on a particular research problem, and that's the essence of the PhD. In this case, we have a much broader approach to study in this coursework degree, a greater breadth of knowledge, of technical skills, and importantly, professional skills to equip graduates to work broadly in industry. And with that comes a greater industry focus. So we've got, as you'll see in a few moments' time, an extended industry placement, which becomes a major kind of feature of the degree and capstone for the degree. And on top of that, we've got significant input from industry leaders who will be contributing to the design of the course and in some cases implementation and teaching of units within the degree. So a much greater industry focus and a greater breadth than a PhD. It's different also to an honours degree as well too, to our BSc, B-Pharm Sci Hons. And as we'll see, there are entry points for students to do a B-Pharm Sci Hons and then come in and do a accelerated version of the M-Pharm Sci. More about that in a moment. So what it does then is really expand upon the foundations of pharmaceutical science, which are the things that you're learning about in your B-Pharm Sci now. So this is advanced knowledge. So in a sort of that sense, developing your skills in cutting edge techniques in pharmaceutical science, looking at data analysis, and developing those professional skills that allow you to perform at your very best in a workplace environment. And it culminates, as I said, in this extended placement, which many of you would do in industry setting, although there is the opportunity to do it also in a research laboratory setting, and capstone that pulls the whole degree together and allows you to demonstrate the level that you've reached during the as a consequence of doing the degree. And the whole degree is underpinned by some important principles which we think need to be the foundation for this, which is the principles of sustainability, of ethics, and of social responsibility. And if we can get those components right and create graduates who are supported by that with a very strong pharmaceutical science knowledge and skill set, and professional skills, we've got graduates who are set to make an important contribution to society as they move away from Monash and enter the real world. So what you'll actually study then, we've split the degree into 4 parts, and we've put a lot of work in this. We decided to call them Part A, Part B, Part C, and Part D. We did give them some extra names though to help here. So Part A, as we'll see in a moment, is the foundation of pharmaceutical science. Really is advanced preparatory studies, a little bit more about who this is relevant to and so on as we go forward. Each of these parts, I should say, is worth 24 points, giving you 96 points for the entire 2-year course. And again, a bit more about that in a moment as well too. In Part B, we've called this case studies in pharmaceutical science. We take a very broad view of what a case study is, really talking about evidence that exists already, that exists already as our kind of key to learning, our trigger for learning. So looking at both knowledge and laboratory-based case studies and scenarios to help develop that understanding of pharmaceutical science. We then take that and move into what we're going to call advanced pharmaceutical science, where we really try and upskill the graduate both in a knowledge sense and in a technical sense to bring them to the cutting edge, really to where pharmaceutical science is now when you're actually doing the degree, as well as giving you important career skills to get you prepared then for Part D, which is the placement and capstone unit. So the placement itself is an 18-point unit, which will allow, in most cases, a 12-week extended placement in an industry setting, probably in the pharmaceutical industry, perhaps in a related industry if a student chooses, and the capacity also for that to be in a research laboratory. And then the capstone, which would be, as I say, a way to try and bring all of these studies together and for a student to demonstrate through problem solving skills, just how it is they're able to conduct themselves in a workplace setting. So we think those 4 parts then create a very rounded 2-year program for students. So what this next slide and the next few slides show are the units that we've got together that make up this 4 parts. So we've got our Part A, Advanced Preparatory Studies, Overview of Drug Discovery and Development, Target Identification and Validation, Drug Design and Optimization, and Drug Formulation, Clinical Trials and Registration. And I bet that there's a bunch of you out there who are current B-Pharm Sci students, maybe B-Pharm Sci Hons students, who are thinking, hang on, that's what I studied for 3 years, maybe 3.5 years for an honours student. I kind of know that stuff already. I know what drug discovery and development, and I've looked at target identification and validation. And indeed, you're right. So for our B-Pharm Sci students, B-Pharm Sci graduates, you don't actually do that Part A. We'll let you into the program at Part B. So that first part there is the entry point then for science and biomedical science students and engineering students. So students who've got a non-cognate degree would come in at Part A. B-Pharm Sci students will come in at Part B. So you've got an accelerated program, a 72-point program to do rather than a 96-point program. So our Part B then, you can see the titles of the units there. I'll come back to those when we talk about those in the next couple of slides. And again, our B-Pharm Sci honours students who have spent that extra year of study also get opportunity for concession where the B-Pharm Sci honours students then will start at Part C. So they won't need to do the Part B, which is the entry point, as I said, for the B-Pharm Sci graduates. So our B-Pharm Sci honours students then come in at Part C and do a 1-year program and get a master's degree from that. So a 48-point unit. So basically, if you're a student who comes from a science degree, you'll do the full 96-point program. If you've done a B-Pharm Sci, you'll start at Part B and do a 72-point program. And if you're a B-Pharm Sci honours graduate or a Pharm Sci engineering double degree student, you'll come in at Part C and complete a 48-point master's program. So significant advantages if you've done previously done B-Pharm Sci studies and graduated successfully. So just to give you a little bit of a taster of what these all mean, Part A probably won't affect most of you because you will have done a Bachelor of Pharmaceutical Science, but we're really dealing there with an overview of drug discovery and development, which talks about the pipeline of drug discovery and development. Target identification and validation, where these programs basically start. Our drug design and optimization, how it is we initially discover the hits for targets and improve on them to take them through to become leads for further development. And then our formulation, clinical trials and regulation, where we're taking drugs from the laboratory, our best candidates, and taking them through to ultimately to clinical use. Most of you, though, won't be studying that component of the degree. You'll come in at Part B or Part C. And Part B then are case studies in pharmaceutical science. We've got drug stories, which is really a deep dive into some classic and contemporary examples of drug discovery and development. And by studying those in detail, we'll get to learn a lot of the real basic principles of what makes for a successful drug discovery and development outcome. So there's a lot to be learned from history and sort of contemporary developing history, I guess, as we go. In the second unit there, from ideas to medicines, we're going to shift that focus from the drugs to the investigators. And we're really fortunate here, you're really fortunate here, carrying out a Master of Pharmaceutical Science degree at MIPS, the Monash Institute of Pharmaceutical Science, where we have labs full of scientists involved in drug discovery with magnificent stories to tell and really instructive stuff information to share and develop with you. So we're going to, in this second unit, really look at the investigator perspectives of how it is we take an idea and take that through to a medicine. What are the pathways? What are the things we need to look out for? Where are the successes? Where are the things we can improve? So a fantastic chance to engage with research going on here in the faculty. In experimental investigations, learning from the lab, this is basically a kind of mini research placement where you'll shadow a PhD student. And again, this will be, I think, a lot of fun, following a PhD student around for a couple of weeks as they go about their day-to-day business of their little component of drug discovery and development, and a whole set of tasks around that and creating that into a bigger picture and so on. It'll be a lot of fun, that. And then finally, drug discovery and development, the next step, which is really giving you training in, if you're presented a particular scenario, what's the next thing that you're going to do? If you've got a set of activities of compounds in vitro data, what would you need to do in order to initiate a set of in vivo experiments from that? Which in vivo experiments would you do? If you had a comprehensive set of in vivo data, how would you go about setting up a program to study a compound in human clinical trials, for example? So bringing in that idea of what the next step is, and having you work through that. So these are sort of hypothetical circumstances. So we go from history to people to being in the lab, seeing things happen, to actually doing things yourself in a hypothetical sense. In part C then, in advanced pharmaceutical science, we, as the sort of names here suggest, state-of-the-art and emerging technologies is really a kind of knowledge-focused unit. What are the current advances in technologies in pharmaceutical science? Contemporary technical skills will be a laboratory-based unit where you'll get hands-on experience in using cutting-edge laboratory techniques. In career tools, bridging the gap, this is where we formally bring in training in the skills that will equip you in the workplace. And then finally, regulatory drivers and drug development is looking at what I've called the back end of drug discovery, drug discovery and development, which takes really the major amount of time and major amount of cost in getting a compound through human clinical trials, and finally through registration and approval. So that's really taking us through that, what happens after you've got a candidate compound. So we cover, I think, all aspects of drug discovery and development in that way. And then finally, in part D, our which is not case studies in pharmaceutical science, it's the professional placement section, which is an extended professional placement. As we said, 12 weeks for most of you. We're looking at the capacity to have some extended placement, super extended placements as well, which we might be able to do in some circumstances. This will be a 12-week placement, really a chance for you to apply what you've learned so far actually in the workplace. And then our capstone unit at part D is project culture and context in pharmaceutical science. Your opportunity to demonstrate your consolidation of your learning across the entire degree, and to be able to show really what it is that you've achieved, what it is that you've become from graduating through this program. So I think altogether that will give graduates, very rounded graduates who are really highly prepared to step out into the workforce and help Australia and the world, for that matter, continue to make important contributions in pharmaceutical science and development of new medicines. So how will you be assessed? We're going to have a range of assessment tasks, as you might imagine, and where possible, which will be in most cases, these will be aligned as close as we can to the sorts of things that you might need to do in a real world environment. So there'll be assignments, there'll be reports, There'll be oral presentations. There could be development of web pages and so on. Things that you're likely to have to do in a workplace environment. There'll be an emphasis on both individual and group and team-based work, recognising the importance of both individual contributions and the absolute importance of teamwork in a workplace setting. And perhaps the thing that you can all collectively cheer on in a moment's time is there will be no end of semester exams in this. So again, a recognition of the maturity of you as postgraduate students, and the way that we want to gear the assessment towards real world tasks. No end of semester exams, so you can kiss those goodbye. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that. So what are the entry requirements then? So to come in at entry level 1, and entry level 1 will start, that is starting at part A, and that will roll out in semester 1 of 2022. That's the 2-year 96-point full-time program. There'll be an opportunity to do that part-time over 4 years. And that's for students with a BSc, a B Biomed Sci, or a BEng with a 60% average, a WAM of 60. If you're coming in at entry level 2, which is starting at part B, and that will be in semester 2 of 2022. So a short gap there, semester gap before we begin. That's a 1.5-year full-time program, 72-point program. Again, 3 years part-time options, and that will require you to have a B Pharm Sci, again with a WAM of 60. At entry level, which is, I should say, most of our students, the very vast majority of our students end up with WAMs of 60 or greater. At entry level C, starting at where you start at part C, this would be in semester 1 of 2023. So this will roll out in a year and a half's time. That's 1 year full-time, 2 years part-time. This would be students with a B Pharm Sci Hons with a WAM of 70. Again, the absolute vast majority of our honours students have WAMs of 70. And it can also be the B Pharm Sci engineering double degree students, that also being an honours level degree. Again, part C entry will, with a 70% WAM, will get you in at that point. So as far as how and when you apply for domestic students for entry level 1, which is probably no one on this particular call here, begins in semester 1, 2022. The applications will open on the 1st of August, in a month or two's time, and end at the 31st of January in 2022. For entry level 2, which is probably the majority of you, the majority of people here, beginning in semester 2 of 2022, the applications open on the 1st of August in 2021. So again, a couple of months' time, and will stay open until the 30th of June in 2022. So just prior to beginning of semester 2 next year. And then for entry level 3 students, those students with completing a B Pharm Sci Hons, those applications will open on the 1st of August in 2022 and finish on the 31st of January 2023, just in time for the beginning of that part C of the program. For international students, they can apply. You can apply anytime. So if you're an international student, those dates don't apply to you. You can apply when you wish, and your application will be processed then. I should point out that applications are free, so there's no application fee, and you're under no obligation, of course, when you apply. You're welcome to apply, be offered a place, and not accept that. There's no penalty for doing that. And the online application process is through that website there, which you may already be familiar with. If you want to know more about this, Study Monash has a site which lists the information that I've spoken about now and a couple of extra things. That's through that web link there. I hope we've been able to present the sort of basic structure of the program, what it is we'd be expecting from you, what it is you'd be able to achieve at the end of it. Some of the things that you're going to have to do as you run through the program. as we further refine and develop the details of the program, we'll make this available through our faculty website, and we'll update the Study Monash website as appropriate. We'll be keeping contact you with emails outlining admission entry dates and so on, and any other bits of important information that come up as we go. So you'll be kept in the loop in that sense. And hopefully we'll get to see some of you enrol in that program over the next year or two and continue your pharmaceutical science journey. That's probably a really good point to stop, and we'll go and check what's been happening with questions in the Q&A. So yeah, thanks all for your attention, and let's just move on to questions now.
Thank you, Tony. I'm happy to chair the Q&A if you would like.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great, Rachel. Thanks.
Yeah. I can understand it sometimes like you're talking to yourself in these webinar settings, isn't it? So let's just talk to each other. Okay, so a really great question that came in pretty early on that I thought was good to answer live is, will any research component be available in this course so that graduates may apply for PhD afterwards? Yeah,
that's a fantastic question, and the answer is yes. So the way that we'll set up the degree is that there'll be sufficient research opportunities through the degree to mean that a graduate of this degree would be eligible for a PhD. Mm-hmm. So a student who does this will be eligible to apply for a PhD afterwards. So we're going to ensure that that's the case. That comes in. We can build aspects of that into the placement. We've said we've got students who are going to be shadowing PhD students. There's other aspects for research activities that means that the degree offers sufficient research training to prepare a student for a PhD. But really good question.
Yeah. And we should also point out that there's a few, entry pathways towards a PhD as well. So you could do the 3-year BPharm Sci and then do the 2-year Masters and then a PhD, or you could do the BPharm Sci for 3 years, an honours year, a 1-year Masters and a PhD. So hopefully it does open up those sorts of pathways for students as well.
Yeah, and of course students can still do a BPharm Sci and an honours year and be ready for a PhD as well too. It's a different training. You'll have a student who goes through different paths will have a slightly different perspective and background, enter their PhD slightly differently, and every student's journey is going to be a little bit different. And the terrific thing is to have those options to be able to consider.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so this is a good one as well. CSP for domestic students. What's the fee for international students, and are there any scholarships?
Yeah. So CSPs for domestic students we're looking at the moment, and that's one of those things that we'll keep you updated with by email as we get information for that. So CSP issue is a complicated one, and basically for us to get CSP positions for this, we need to get them from somewhere else in Monash. I think that's correct. So yeah, there's a little bit of trading and argy-bargy and things that has to go on with this. But as soon as we have some information on that, we'll get back to you. We're hoping for a small number of CSP places, but we can't guarantee it at this stage. The fee for international students is just a little bit over $40,000, I think. And that's in line with other master's programs that are offered certainly through Monash and through other Australian universities. As far as scholarships go, again, that's something that we would keep you informed with as we work through that. So we'd be looking at that possibility, but nothing fixed at the moment yet.
Yeah. Cool. The next question is it possible to complete the BPharm Sci, take a break, and then come back to complete the master's program later down the track?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's probably, well, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that's going to be the most common way that students approach this, that this is something that they don't necessarily roll straight on from their BPharm Sci or indeed their previous undergraduate studies, whatever they are, but actually take some sort of break. And indeed, we have a BPharm Sci graduate anyway would have a 6-month rest, if you like, between completing their B-Pharm Sci and commencing the M-Pharm Sci if they went through as straight through. But I suspect that it's like other professional master's programs, coursework master's programs like this, we'll get a significant number of graduates who actually take some time out, who work, who do some other things, and then come back to the degree later. So that's where I'm expecting a lot of our students the path that they'll take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think we'll see, students who come straight from our bachelor's program into the master's. Again, there'll be students, as we described, who do take the break. The only thing to bear in mind is that there will probably be a recency rule. I don't think we've quite discussed that yet, but for our other graduate program, it's 10 years. So if you are 10 years out you haven't studied for 10 years, then you might have to do some, additional study or that sort of thing to come back and study the master's program.
Yeah, it can depend, I think, also on what you've been doing in that 10 years. So I think if you've been working in a related field, I think that generally can help to get you through then. But that's a problem for 10 or 11 years time. Yes.
Yeah. Surely no one's thinking that far ahead. Who knows though? Maybe you are one of those planners. Okay, so the course delivery mode. Can this course be fully delivered online in this pandemic situation? Great question.
Yeah, so another great question. And the answer to that is, well, at the moment, certainly today, it would have to be fully online. We're setting up the course so that there will be, the students will be expected to be on campus. But look, exactly where we sit in 12 months, 2 years' time is anybody's guess. At the moment, it may not be possible to get students from overseas on campus. I don't know what the story is going to be with that. So when in a pandemic, yes. Not in a pandemic, then we'll be having students will need to be on campus for this. And we think that's to everybody's huge benefit and huge advantage. So obviously, if you can't come on campus for reasons of a pandemic or whatever it happens to circumstances arise, then you won't be. But I think in our planning of it, we're planning for students for this not to be an online course. This is a course where you'll need to have significant engagement on campus.
Mm-hmm. And just so you know, so Tony's already mentioned that applications open in August. And, if you're interested, if you're a current Monash student, domestic or international, application is free and we would encourage you to apply. And certainly you're not locked into anything in terms of accepting your offer, should the situation change. So we can't let you know now what exactly the delivery mode will be, but like further down the track, when it comes time to closer accepting your offer and we know a little bit more about what is happening with borders, that's when you can make that final decision, and we'll definitely try and keep you informed as well. Yeah.
And I think it's good. That's really important, Rachel. I think it's good to point out it's not that we're not telling you. It's actually we don't know. And that's what we want to know as soon as in the same way that you do. So as soon as we have that information and that certainty or that window of opportunity, whatever it happens to be. I mean, we thought we had certainty a week ago that we had students coming back on campus, and now we don't. So it's just obviously really fluid, dynamic situation. But when we have the information, we'll let you know what we know, and we're striving towards the same goal, I think.
Yeah. And certainly applying and expressing your interest is probably the best way for you to keep informed about the situation as well, because we can't let you know, I guess, what the situation is like or what your options are unless we have your consent and your contact details. I'll take the next question, which is application fee free for international students too? Just to clarify, if you're a current Monash student, a current Monash international student, yes, the fee is free. You don't pay anything to apply. I know, we have some recruitment colleagues here. If the student is external to Monash, the regular application fee will apply at this stage. Next question for you, Tony. So, masters required for a PhD?
Short answer to that is no. So the clock restarts with the PhD, brand new degree, brand new program. So no. In the sense of the administrative time frame for it. Now, you could argue that a student might be better prepared for a PhD after having done a master's program, in which case they might be able to approach their PhD studies in a better way than if they hadn't done that, and that might shorten the time that they spend in it, but that's going to depend very much on the individual. Certainly from an administrative sense, no, the PhD program is still the PhD program, which is generally minimum 3 years.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah, 2 separate programs.
Yeah.
And I've never really heard of credit for a PhD, so I don't think that can happen.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
Okay, so there is an extended placement and potentially a super extended placement in this course. Are we going to organise the placements for students?
Yeah, so that's our plan at the moment. Those of you who are doing third year will be part of our placement program with Monash Professional Placements, and we'll be extending that program, that interaction for the master's program. So we would organise that for you. If you have a placement that you want to organise yourself, you can let us know, and we can make sure that it meets the criteria and so on that we need to for the course. But our aim is that we would be organising the placements, not that it would be student organised, but we'd be open to students coming up with suggestions for things for sure for that.
Cool. And the next question is, will these slides be shared after the session?
In principle, I'm happy with sharing them. I'm not quite sure the mechanism for that, Rachel. Maybe you've got
yes.
If there's a way we can share them with students, very happy for them to be shared.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we'll do is we're taking a recording right now. So once we download that and sort of collate that with the slides, we'll send it out to all of you who were invited. And we will also, because applications haven't even opened yet, I think we did say you can apply all year round as an international student, but there is still a bit of application training to be done. So maybe just come August, that would be a good time to apply. And it's not first in best dressed or anything like that, but we will certainly also let you know when applications are open, as well as confirm things then like fees and any potential CSPs and that sort of thing. We'll definitely keep in touch with you as we confirm things and have more information. Okay, I've got a few more questions, which is great, and definitely feel free to keep them coming because there's no time like the present. So will students get paid for the 12-week placement?
The answer to that, as far as I know, is yes. Jen, maybe you're able to add something to that from experience with the BPharm size students.
I am not 100% certain, but it's no unless the supervisor chooses to pay. And that is possible. And so one of the things that Tony and I have been discussing, and it relates back to the earlier question, was around student sourced placements. And so you would be able to discuss that with the supervisor, and it's not forbidden, but it's at the discretion of the company for which you go into placement. As this is an education opportunity, that's why it's not a requirement that you are paid. Does that distinction make sense?
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
That sounds great, Jen. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Okay, now we've got a few questions about scholarships. What types of scholarships will be available, when we can expect to receive further information from them, and how much they'll be worth and that sort of thing. Again, this is something we're still working out. So we hope to be able to update you around the time when applications open. And certainly, you know, if we have any significant information prior to then, we'll update you as soon as possible. But yeah, probably look forward to that August date in the first instance, because yeah, I mean, you can't apply for the course yet anyway. Cool. This one's a good one, Tony. So just curious to see if there is an opportunity to study overseas based on the questions asked on the survey last year. So I think there is a bit of an appetite from BPharm students to have an overseas experience. Do you think this course will provide any overseas opportunity?
Yeah, so in its sort of essence, I think the plan is for this to be well, two things here. So we're rolling out the program here at Parkville. The program will also be introduced in Monash, Malaysia. So it will come online probably in the middle of 2022 with Part B in so level 2 entry in Malaysia. So that will be a sort of will run kind of concurrently, jointly with the program here. As far as components of the degree happening overseas, there could be the capacity for a student to do a placement overseas. That's probably something that they'd need to organise themselves and then involve us in that process. But the degree, the majority of the teaching and learning would take place either at Parkville or at Monash, Malaysia, if a student enrolled through Monash, Malaysia. So we have plans also for an additional master's degree, which is a joint program with the University of North Carolina and University College London through our Farm Alliance connection. And that would come online in 2023. And that will have that opportunity for a requirement for overseas learning. So that may be something that you want to keep in mind. Again, we'll bring information forward for that as that develops over the coming months to year.
Thank you. Yeah, it is exciting that Malaysia is also going to be teaching the. You know, it's great that we have a campus there too.
Fantastic. It certainly is, yeah.
Incentivise students to go and have an international experience in Malaysia, and I mean financially incentivise, and there can be external type funding available, such as New Colombo Plan funding as well. So again, you know, it's all still pretty new for them, but yeah, hopefully we can get some things up and running.
Yeah, we haven't, so I'm thinking as I go here, we haven't spoken about the possibility of students doing part of the program here at Parkville and part of the program in Malaysia or vice versa, but that's something that we could perhaps look at. I don't know what my colleagues think about that, but it's something that we haven't spoken explicitly about, but there may be opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm.
I will jump in. I think that would be awesome, and that's definitely something that we would be working towards. And there's lots of great opportunities in industry in Malaysia and
that's for sure. Yeah.
Across the whole region, actually. So, look, you know, can't say anything because of the way that we are currently impacted by COVID-19 and travel restrictions. But
to throw a big
really
blanket over everything at the moment.
Yeah. I see there being lots of opportunities for whether it's placement or a whole semester or, study abroad. Lots of different opportunities there in this master's program.
Great, thanks, Jen. All right, we've got a few more minutes if anyone has any more questions. If not, I'm not too sure if you have your contact details on the slide, Tony. But if not, that's fine. Send it through. So we'll make sure everyone who's attended today can send their questions direct to Tony or ourselves in the marketing office as well, if you have any. Yeah, I think that's probably it for questions, but did you want to make any closing remarks, Tony?
Yeah, I think it's just want to reiterate, I think this is a really going to be a fabulous opportunity for so many of our own students. We'll have students who've come from outside the BPharm Sci and BPharm Sci Honours, so it'll be an opportunity there for you to interact and meet with students from different backgrounds as well too. You're going to have some familiar staff who will be involved in teaching, and you'll have some new faces as well too, from within the faculty and from outside of the faculty. Various opportunities through Monash Malaysia that we've spoken about. I think it's going to be a really exciting program. So hopefully some of you see this as an opportunity that's appropriate for you, and take it up when it becomes available. So I'm looking forward to that all happening soon.
Yep. Thanks so much, Tony, for giving the presentation today and your time. And as we said, we will definitely keep in touch, and we'll also start to, I guess, promote the program more broadly now to other cohorts and Monash staff. So thank you all, and we will send around these resources and the recordings. I'm going to stop there.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Jen. And thank you all for